Thank you. Thank you for joining me here. Let me just move this so it's not so quite awkward. There we go. Alrighty. Yeah, thank you for joining me for video two of this video stream or these videos. This is where I'm going into the gameplay for Beta Earth. I hope you guys enjoy it. Again, this is going to be a very short video like the last one. Inherently, I can't make it as short as the first one because the first one was just an intro. This is how to play, but I'll make this very brief and concise. If you have any further questions after the fact, then go and leave a comment on the video after it posts, and or even if you're joining me while I'm doing this, you can have a question, I'll respond. But welcoming you to Beta Earth, the how to play, revised and updated and revised. Again, this is Beta Earth, and we'll just go to the table and we'll get started. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move this off to the side here. Okay. All right, I apologize. 1 second. Okay, there we go. And unfortunately, I don't want that to be hanging off. There we go. Okay, so I appreciate that. So here we're going to jump into it. So how do you play Beta Earth, the card game? So you're going to have a deck. You're going to construct a deck of 40 cards at least. It can be more than that. There's no upper maximum. But again, keep in mind, as traditional card games go, again, the larger the deck, the longer it'll take to get what you really want. In this game, there's an automatic game loss condition of if you deplete all the cards in your draw deck so that every card ends up being destroyed, you can't draw anymore when you need to draw, and that ends the game. So so the deck is your resources. That'll be automatic loss. But the way to win and not how to lose and actually have an actual standard victory is be the first to get to 15 victory points. You'll do that a number of different ways, and I'll go over that during the card play. But let's just jump into it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your constructed deck, and again, I'll go over deck construction in a different video, tips and traits, tips and things like that. But you're going to take your constructed deck. What you're going to play is you're going to go ahead and take the 2 cards for your persona. You're going to take the bio card along with any reference cards you want to have with you. There are 2 different ones that come in the game for the competitive play, and I like to just take all 3 like this. But again, the 2 reference cards and the bio card for your persona, put them to your left here because just on the side, and then take the face card for your persona for the deck you built around and put it into your HQ, which will be right next to wherever you have these on the side. But your HQ will be basically right here, this space right here. So that's your HQ. You're going to put your face card for persona in the HQ. Then you're going to take your draw deck, shuffle it up, and we're going to go ahead and shuffle this up. And you're good to go. You draw your standard hand size, which normally in a game is 8 cards, unless you have anything else out there modifying it, but normally it's 8. So you're going to draw 8 cards. And there's your starting hand size. Your draw deck will be over here to the right, and your discard pile to the right of that. And any destroyed cards will be face up, but this way. Below your draw deck and discard pile will be your destroyed pile. So, and then here is the field. Between you and the opponent, this sort of general in the center of the area of the game table, including what's in front of you, is what you would classify as, again, the field. Okay, so there's my starting hand. So you've got things set up. Now, this is the way it goes. So first part of the game is the first step is the prep phase. The prep phase is going to have 2 things. First thing is anything that is exhausted, you will ready. Now let me explain exhausted really quick. So there are 2 positions a card is in the game, whether it is readied or exhausted. Readied is upright 90 degrees, horizontal position, clockwise 90 degrees rotated. That is exhausted. So if you have any exhausted cards that you control, you're going to ready those first thing of your turn. Then at that point, that's just showing you what that means orientation wise. But beginning of the game, normally you're not going to have anything right away out. So then the next part you have is you get to do the discard and draw phase. So you get to decide how many cards from your hand you want to discard into your discard pile, and then you will draw back up to your hand size. So, for example, if I looked at my hand and saw that I wanted to discard 3 cards, for example, I would discard those and then draw 3 more into my hand. That would be my discard and draw. And you must discard all the cards you want to discard at the same time. There's not these one card at a time thing. It's all of them, then draw. All the ones you want to discard and then draw. So it's a discard and draw. That is your prep phase. Then it goes to the main phase. Main phase is where the bread and butter of the game is, where most of the action, where it all takes place. During the prep phase, whatever player has the initiative will take the first action of the phase, and it'll then begin to switch between players, passing back and forth between players until all players have passed consecutively. That is the key, if they pass consecutively. So if I take an action, my opponent passes, but then it goes back to me and I do take an action, then it will go back to my opponent to be able to again pass again or to take an action. So it's when all players have passed consecutively that it ends the main phase. But the main phase is only part of the turn where all players have an option to act. Inherently, there are instant effects that regardless of any phase or turn, you can play them regardless. And I'll get into that in a sec, but we'll get to that later. So this is where you get to do it, the main phase. Now, whoever has the initiative gets the chance to do the first action. Now, when you have actions, and again, instant effects do not count as an action, unless it were to say in the effect itself, but normally no. So, when you have an action, you can do several different things. You can play a card from your hand. Now, when you play a card from your hand, for allies, it's pretty universal. Allies will just be put into play. You'll put it either in the top, you'll have 2 rows on your side of the field. Let me go into that first. So you'll have the top row, which will be any of your allies, and then you'll have up to 2 locations on your side out, which would be where your locations are that you put into play. So allies, locations. So let's go back to the actions. So again, first thing you can do as an option is play a card from hand. So if I want to play an ally, it can go either into the field, or you can play the ally into your HQ. So again, when you play a card from hand that's an ally, it can go into the HQ or into your side of the field. That is the first card you can play from your hand. The other card you can play from your hand is a location. Now, a location has 2 different ways you can play that. You can play a location for either, and I'm going to bring this up so you can see this a little better. As you can see, there is a ongoing and an instant effect. So if you play a location to put it into play to garnish the ongoing effect, it will, like allies, come into play. And like I just mentioned, it'll go to on the second row on your side of the field in 1 of 2 spots in the back. Again, you can have up to 2 locations in play. So if you're going to play a location, you're going to go ahead and put that in the back here, in 1 of the 2 areas in the field on your side. That's playing a location. So that is playing a location to play it for an ongoing effect. The other way you can play a location is for the instant effect, as I mentioned before. Bring this back up. So, or you can play it for the instant effect. So if you play the location for the instant effect, you will just, you'll put the card on the table so that, again, all the players can see it. You're going to go ahead and announce the effects, resolve the effects, and then discard this location card that you played for the instant effect. You're going to discard that into your discard pile, and that's all resolved. So that is the other way to play a location card. So again, the first option is to play a card, whether it be an ally or a location for either ongoing persistent effect, where it will come into play onto the field, or for the instant effect, which you'll play onto the table to resolve and then discard after resolving the effects. A location, a card played for an instant effect is never considered in play or in your control. So just keep that in mind. The next thing you can do is you can go ahead and use a card ability. So for example, I don't have, let me see one that would have an example here for card ability. Oh, okay. So let's say I had this guy in my hand. So I'm going to put that back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So, quit it. All right. So let's assume that I had Pitimus Rex. Let's assume that I had already played him on a previous turn. As you can see on this guy, he does have an effect. That says second one. Also, 3 times per game, you may draw up to your current hand size. So let's say he's already on the table, and I decide I want to use a game effect. I can kick off this game effect as an action. So that is the next thing you can do. You can kick off, again, an action game effect on a card. So that's the second option. Third option is you can revive a protagonist. So protagonist is just your persona that you're playing with a player deck, which keywords, you'll get in that later when I get into the next video where I talk about the cooperative mode. But when I say protagonist, it's simply the persona you chose and making sure you have the bio card with the protagonist keyword, which you can see under keywords and traits. So this is, since I have the protagonist bio card, this persona I chose is officially a protagonist in the game. So when I say revive a protagonist, it means that you can go ahead and if there's a protagonist that is face down in the HQ, then you can take an action to revive them, which means you would go ahead and flip them up, and then they'd be revived. And I'll get into the sort of the gritty details on a more in-depth video, but you can revive them. The next action you can do is you can go ahead and move a card to the HQ or vice versa. So, for example, I can move Mundala from, or any ally that's in there, from the HQ to the field or vice versa. So that is another action you can do. So moving in or out of the HQ, that is one. The next thing you can do is you can go ahead and initiate a battle. I'll get to that in a sec. I'm going to go over battling. Actually, I'll have a different video, so that's short and simple. I'll do a different video that covers battling. So you can battle. And then the other things you can do is there's a way to build up wanted tokens. Again, that's a different video. I'll go over that. You can take an action to discard those. The other thing you can do is you can sacrifice a card for an action. So the way you would sacrifice a card, and it's not going to be applicable with your protagonist, it's with allies. So let's bring up again Pitimus Rex. So there is a value here. Sorry. Right there. So the upper left-hand corner there, you see a 3. That is his sacrifice value. Come on, stupid camera. There we go. That is his sacrifice value. So that means that, again, allies can be sacrificed. So that means if you take a sacrifice action, you're going to take that ally and destroy that ally card. So this will go into your destroyed pile. And then equal to the value of the sacrifice value, you can do one of two things. You can go ahead and take a tally of that number, and basically you're putting a value towards claiming the initiative for the next round so that you can be the one to have the first action next round. But the more common thing to do if you sacrifice the ally is you can go ahead and retrieve cards that are in your discard pile. So Pitimus Rex's sacrifice value is 3. If you sacrifice Pitimus Rex, you take any 3 cards from your discard pile and cycle them. The cycle in this game means that any card that is cycled will go from wherever it's being cycled from, whether you're cycling a card from the hand or cycling from the discard pile. If it's cycled, it'll go to the bottom of the to the bottom of your draw deck like that. And whenever you cycle, after you cycle, you will shuffle that draw deck. So that is the 2 different options you can do if you choose to take the action to cycle a card. So that is the other action. So again, you have a lot of different actions you can take, but those are all things as outlined. What I just outlined, those are actions. So it'll take up your action, and again, when you've taken an action, it'll go to the next player, and they can either pass or take an action. And again, this will continue on until all players have consecutively passed. Once that's done, that will end the main phase. Then it'll go to that player's cleanup phase. In the cleanup phase, you will check for, first thing you'll do is you'll check for victory conditions. Again, this is where you'll check and see if any player has reached the 15 or more victory points to win. If multiple players have reached 15 victory points or more, then whoever has the most victory points will take the game. But again, this is where you check and determine if there's a winner. If there is a winner, the game immediately ends and it's over. If no one has won, then you keep proceeding with the turn. So again, first part of the cleanup phase is check for victory conditions. Then the next part is you discard access allies. So as I mentioned, there's an ally limit. Again, you can play up to 3 allies per turn. And then you can also have a max of 3 allies in play. So that magic number 3 is, again, known as the ally limit. So, again, the ally limit is only in force at this point in the game, at this point in the turn. Again, at the second stage of the cleanup phase on that player's turn for all players. So, what that means is if you have more than 3, you will then discard down to 3. And if you have any access, you, the player who controls those allies, will decide which ones to discard. It is up to you, the player, the one who owns those allies, controls them, I should say, whoever controls those allies. So discard down to 3. Then, at that point, at the last part of the cleanup phase, you're going to go ahead and draw a card. So assume that, let's say, again, we'll assume that, let's say I had played a location, and let's say that I had played an ally there, and then I had played 2 allies into my field. So let's assume this is what's happened by the end of again, end of the main phase. We're now into the cleanup phase. Assume that this is what I had done. So at the end, when I'm done, again, after you discard excess allies, you'll draw a card. So I'll draw a card, and that is the end of the cleanup phase. Then the final part is pass initiative. At that point, you'll go ahead and whatever player has the initiative, they will pass that to another player. Usually it's going to be clockwise if there's more than 2 players. If it's just a 2-player game, you'll just pass that to the other player, normally. Now, here's where the sacrificing actions come into play. Again, I did point out that if anyone had sacrificed a card for purposes of trying to basically bid for the initiative on the next turn, then you will look at those values of the sacrificed cards. Again, whoever has the highest value would get the initiative when it comes to, again, this point in the turn where the initiative is passed. And then that's it. And then that is it. So that is a full turn. Again, like I said, it's very simple, but it's very quick to set up and to play. But as you can see, I've sort of pointed out that there are sort of a lot of strategic kind of areas and things to exploit in this game. Also, to clarify, taking action to sacrifice a card, you can sacrifice an ally that is either in hand or in play. It's important to remember that because let's say you already have 3 out and you want a different ally in play, then you can go ahead and, again, do a sacrifice action. So let's say, oh, actually, I'm sorry. I could have 3 out here, actually. I just realized. Because the limit is 3 allies in play. There's no limit of allies in your HQ. Sorry about that. So this is, let's say it's more like this is what it looked like. So let's say that I wanted to get this freelance freighter into play. Then I could sacrifice, let's say I decided to sacrifice the soldier. So I would sacrifice the soldier. And then I could, again, then when it comes back to me as an action, play a new ally. So there's multiple reasons that you'd want to sacrifice. But again, there's always a bonus to. There's always a purpose to sacrificing. You always get something out of it. That is it. And again, the standard game is 15 victory points. Technically, when you set up and start a game, part of the setup is determining the victory points that you'll use, the victory point value that will determine the winner. Normally, it's 15 for a standard game, but you are free to change that as you go into the game before you start to, if all the players want to do something that's lower threshold, like 10 or even higher to make it a longer game, they're free to do that. Just we as the designers do recommend, again, just the 15 for a standard game. And that's it. That's how you play the game. And like I said, I will go into combat at entirely different video where we just entirely cover combat because it's a little more in-depth and so a little more detailed. And so I will go into that in another video. But that's it. That is how you play Beta Earth, again, minus the combat details. I'll go into that later. But that's a basic turn. Those are basically what you can do each turn, what you can do in any given turn, those different actions, but that's how the turn flows. That's how it goes. So I try to make this as quick as possible. I appreciate your staying with me, guys. And again, I'm going to go ahead and do another video here shortly where I cover combat and to make another announcement. But let's go back here. Just give me 1 second to get back out. But actually, I'll just leave it here, actually. I'll see you on the next video. I'll cover combat. But thank you again. This is The View. I hope to see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much. Again, this is Beta Earth. Bye-bye.